Good evening, everybody. The SpinCycle is back live streaming. Let's get right into my favorite Reddit feed. As you know, ICE has gone mad around the country. Donald Trump is losing his mind to dementia, and we are spiraling as a nation right now. It's like living in a third world country in the US. So let's do this. Trying to work on my laggy live stream. You guys let me know how it's working. Comment. If you must. We have a goal today of 10 gifts in 30 minutes. 600,000 suckers pre-ordered Trump mobile phones, which were supposed to be made in the U.S. and delivered in September. They aren't made in the U.S. Nobody has their phones yet, and the company keeps giving different answers to people why that is the case. Why would you buy a Donald Trump phone? Nothing he has ever sold has worked properly. Why would you buy anything from him? 74% of Lexington, Nebraska voted for Trump. Tyson is about to fire 50% of Lexington's entire workforce. Local residents are now begging for socialism to save their beef production with a government takeover of the plant. Another wonderful started going from a Christ-loving patriot. Another wonderful started going from a Christ-loving patriot with 173,000 followers. Let me take a look at that real quick. Man dies from not getting health care after advocating for others to not get health care. Put complete faith in Trump. Also, you guys heard, I'm sure, that the Dilbert creator died this week. He was a big Trumper. I don't know. I was never a big Dilbert fan, but I think a lot of people liked his stuff. Scott Adams was his name. I feel bad for him. Oh no, not Scott Adams. That's who I'm looking at right now. Sorry. Or maybe that is him. On Monday, I will ask President Trump via X to help save my life. It is Scott Adams. He offered to help me if I needed it. I need it. Yeah, Trump does lots of favors for his friends and anybody who sucks his ass. As many of you know, I have metastasized prostate cancer. My healthcare provider, Kaiser of Northern California, has approved my application to receive a newly FDA-approved drug called Pluvicto, but they have dropped the ball in scheduling the brief for to administer it, and that's, am I reading that wrong? That's a Roman numeral 4, right? And I can't seem to fix that. I am declining fast. I will ask President Trump if he can get Kaiser of Northern California to respond and schedule it for Monday. That will give me a fighting chance to stick around on this planet a little bit longer. It is not a cure, but it does give good results to many people. Well, he died Wednesday. I guess Trump didn't answer his prayers like he doesn't answer most people's prayers, I guess. Guys, go ahead and comment. I need you to chat. I'm trying out my new chat box. Say whatever. If you hate me, say it. I disabled my preview, so hopefully there'll be a little less lag. We'll see. After Wyoming property tax cuts, Republican county leader is dismayed by cuts to services she relies on. Carbon County Commissioner Sue Jones is pictured in Saratoga in October. Jones said she isn't taking a property tax exemption that saved her $380 last year because she is witnessing the kind of cuts that resulted from putting that money back in her pocket. Ostensibly, the property tax cuts are designed to prevent Wyoming residents from having to pay more in annual costs, Jones said, but cutting property taxes has come at the expense of access to services like the library, museum, and senior center in her county. I thought there was no property tax in Wyoming. That's why all the billionaires bought property there. Jones felt there was confusion about what property taxes actually fund after seeing the impact firsthand. She's opting to decline the tax exemption that saved her $380, a small gesture to show that she services her tax dollars support are valuable. That the services her tax dollars support are valuable, she said. I also live in a fire district, in a school district, in a soil conservation district, in the weed and pest district, she said. I have family buried in the cemetery district. I have a local library. I have local senior center. 7 things that my little $380 with everybody else's pays for. I think for those 7 things and my $380, I'm getting a really good deal. Yeah, but the thing is, billionaires don't care about those 7 things. Let's look at this more closely. Fire district. Billionaires don't care. They have their own fire suppression systems usually. School district, they definitely don't care. They send their kids to private schools. Soil conservation, I can't say whether or not billionaires really care about soil conservation. Weed and pest district, again, billionaires have giant ranches that they have hired hands to do all that stuff. Family buried in the cemetery, they don't care about public cemeteries, and they definitely don't care about local libraries. In fact, they're adamantly against local libraries because they don't want people reading and getting smart and realizing what they're up to. Wyoming's tax systems, Jones said, might need a little tweaking now and again, but you don't just cut the legs out from under it. That's pretty much what's happened, and it's a ripple effect. Sue Jones. Republican Sue Jones, who vies to maintain her position as Carbon County Commissioner, is big on improving the region. I would like to finish up some projects, she said, one of which is Courthouse Carbon Building Remodel Project, which is the county's project for the 6th penny. This project is very large and important to the county. I would also like to see the road improvement projects that are being currently prioritized undertaken if finances allow. Yeah, these smaller towns, I live in a small town, small county in Colorado, and they, when they do these projects, they usually have to get them approved. In my county, anyway, they have to get them approved through ballot initiative, and a lot of people don't want to pay extra property taxes to build a new sheriff's jail, and that's one thing in my home county of Grand County, Colorado, that they've been pushing for a few years. They say the jail is too small and whatnot, but it lost on the first ballot measure, I think, and I think it's coming up again. But yeah, these small counties, these people are rural. They don't have tons of extra money. They don't want to pay an extra dollar. It's not even that much, but maybe it's usually a percentage, 1%. They don't want to pay extra property tax, especially because a lot of them are ranchers who own, like my friend who's a rancher owns 4,000 acres in Colorado. So if he has to pay an extra dollar per acre, that's $4,000. And although his family is land wealthy and water wealthy and like resource wealthy, they're cash poor because they're in the beef cattle business, which hasn't been good for several decades. So, I mean, take that for what it is. But Mike Sullivan, I voted for Trump. I voted for cheaper energy, not an electric bill that has almost doubled. Is there anybody? 2 views, all right. Come on, guys, I'm going for 1 million subscribers. I voted for Trump. I just want to make $1,000 a month on my YouTube channel. So you guys, if you want to help me out, go ahead and get a membership, subscribe, like, comment. I voted for cheaper. Even if you're MAGA, I want to hear your comment. I want to hear from you guys. I know you hate watch this channel. Even though I only have 2,800 subscribers, probably half of them are MAGA. I voted for cheaper energy, not an electric bill that has almost doubled. I voted for deportation, not an armed militia with masks patrolling the streets. I voted for no new wars. Yeah, what about that? No new wars. Now we're in Venezuela. They want to invade Cuba. Marco Rubio is Cuban, so that's like a big thing for him. They want to invade Cuba next, and then take Greenland from Denmark, which is just kind of insane. It's like the old Monroe Doctrine for South America. I voted for no new wars, not the bombs in Iran, and regime change in Venezuela. Yeah, I forgot about the bombs in Iran. And Trump's about to send troops back into Iran. I mean, to protect the protesters that are there, I'm not totally against that. But what happened to, letting countries deal with their own problems, especially countries on the other side of the planet? I voted for America first, not Israel. I'm so tired of plus, if we go into Iran and, send soldiers in there and, the people are just going to end up hating us because, I mean, that's just what happens. That's what happened in Iraq, Afghanistan. And they'll run back into the arms of the Ayatollah, and the theocratic system that they have there. In fact, I ran into a few years ago, probably 8 years ago now, I was in Panama, staying at like this surf resort, just like a cheap place where, a hostel kind of where vagabonds came through. But I ran into this older than me. He was in his 60s at the time, a professor from Iran and his wife. And I mean, he was not a fan of the theocracy, but he was also really hostile to America. Like, he tried to start a fight with me at the little bar there. There was only 3 of us in there, 4. Him, his wife, me, and this Australian dude surfer dude that I was having a couple beers with. And I mean, this Iranian guy got really hostile with me, and I was just, smiling and being friendly. And he ended up, wanting to throw down fisticuffs with me by the end of the night. I think he drank too much, and the Australian guy had to break it up. I mean, this guy was like 5 foot tall, fat, and like 65. I would have destroyed him, but I didn't want to fight him. I'm more of a pacifist. I'm so tired of the word, but who knows? Maybe he knew something I didn't know. Maybe he was an special operations Iranian killer or something. I don't know. Or maybe he would have pulled a knife out. You never know. So, I mean, bar fights are never a good idea, especially when people are drinking. I mean, I had a beer or two, but it seemed like he got quite sloppy. I'm so tired of the word domestic terrorist being used to describe Americans. I voted for the release of the Epstein documents, not more cover-up. Yeah, what happened to the Epstein documents? Would I still pick Trump over Biden? Probably, but it's okay to admit we got played. Can we please get a Thomas Massey type person for president? Yes, I know eggs and gas are cheaper. I wish I was tired of winning. Well, Mike Sullivan, Biden wasn't running against Trump. It was Kamala Harris. And I know she was a terrible Kamala Harris. She was a terrible candidate and a terrible choice. And we should have had a primary because the choice would have been somebody like probably Bernie Sanders, to be honest. That's who the base really wants, even though he's older than Trump. But he's definitely got his wits about him still. Who told you that? That surely was not me. Trump on the 2000 stimulus tariff check to supporters. He did say it, if I recall, but let's see what... Trump voter who may have voted for their own death or destruction or destitution. I actually think this is very sad but highly frustrating. Trump voters' life at risk over Medicaid cuts. Trump seems to forget 2000 stimulus checks promise in recent interview. Well, he does have dementia, so many Americans have been waiting to find out when President Trump's $2,000 tariff dividend, when are they coming, will materialize following repeated promises from the president. Since July, the Trump administration has been teasing details about dispersing 2,000 tariff rebate payments to millions of low and middle income USA citizens earning less than $100,000. The president initially said these checks would most likely come in mid-2026. However, Trump provided an update on Wednesday on when Americans can expect to receive the stimulus checks, and not only was the timeline extended, but it also took a moment for the president to recall his previous promises about the payments. In a recent interview with the New York Times, White House reporter Katie Rogers asked Trump the following question. You've promised $2,000 checks to Americans based off of your tariff revenues. When can they expect those? His tariff revenues are in the billions. To send $2,000 checks to all Americans, I'm pretty sure it would be hundreds of billions of dollars. So, I mean, I think his tariff revenue in total is like 100 billion, so. So that's not going to work, right? Oh, 5 viewers. Go ahead and comment, guys. I need somebody to comment. I want to use my comments. I'm pretty new to live streaming. In a recent interview with, his initial response was, I did do that. When did I do that? It seemed like he didn't remember his promises regarding the $2,000 checks. I don't think he remembers what he had for breakfast. He's deep in dementia now. Trump posted on Truth Social on November 9th a dividend of at least $2,000, a person not including high-income people. It will be paid to everyone. Will be paid to everyone. The following day, the president continued on Truth Social. All money left over. The following day, the president continued on Truth Social. All money left over from the $2,000 payments made to low and middle income USA citizens from the massive tariff income pouring into our country from foreign countries, which will be substantial, will be used to substantially pay down national debt. If you guys just started watching, go ahead and subscribe, like, comment. Tariff income pouring into our country from foreign countries, which will be substantial, will be used to substantially pay down national debt. In the recent New York Times interview, the president continued to think, saying, I'm thinking, well, I did 1,776 for the military. And Trump's televised, that 1,776 for the military, by the way, was an already promised housing stipend to the military people, which only some of them got, only military people that are off-campus housing. And that was already in promise to them. He just put his name on it, basically, calling it the warrior dividend. While he credited his global tariff policies for the checks in his speech, the payment was already authorized by Congress in the form of basic allowance for housing subsidy via the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Exactly. So it wasn't his One Big Beautiful Bill, but, he's trying to, that's schadenfreude or gaslighting, or I've heard people call it lately fuckery, where he's, saying that that's the stimulus check, that's the warrior stimulus, but it was already promised to them, already in the bill, and it's a housing stipend. So, they're not going to get other housing money. It's for housing, not a bonus check to do whatever you want with. Besides Trump's continuous promises about the 2,000 checks, he also issued a $12 billion farmers aid package using tariff revenue, and had proposed cutting income tax and lowering the federal deficit with the funds. In the New York Times interview, Trump was asked directly when Americans would receive the checks. "Well, I am going to. The tariff money is so substantial," the president responded, that's coming in, that I'll be able to do 2,000 sometime, I would say toward the end of the year. The end of 2026? Yeah, he's probably going to try and do it right before the election. I wouldn't be surprised. All right, 9 viewers, guys. Go ahead and like, subscribe, comment. There's only 2 minutes left on my gifts. So if you want to help out the channel, I am a monetized channel. I make a whole $20 a month. However, the Trump administration has yet to present an official proposal to Congress regarding these checks for its approval. That's right, it has to be passed by Congress. Trump just can't wave a wand and checks come to everybody. While Trump said he doesn't believe he will need Congress's approval, he does. National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett said in a CBS News interview last month that Congress is going to have to send those money to those people. Yeah, and Kevin Hassett also said, well, maybe you already got the 2,000 in your big tax break you're going to get, but I don't think the tax break we're getting is going to be that big. Like somebody from me, a middle income person, I think my tax refund is going to be about the same as it always is, which is near zero. Hassett said, I would expect that in the new year the president will bring forth a proposal to Congress to make that happen. Previously in a cabinet meeting, Trump said, we're going to be giving back refunds out of the tariffs because we've taken it literally trillions of dollars. We're going to be giving because we've taken in literally trillions of dollars. That's a lie. It's not trillions. It's like a couple billion. We're going to be giving a nice dividend to the people in addition to reducing the debt. Isn't it funny how these guys talk about like trillions and billions and and us regular people, we're working on the the level of tens of dollars or maybe thousands of dollars. Like I'm a thousandaire. I've never had more than six figures in the bank at a time, right? I've never even had 6 figures in the bank at a time, come to think of it. 5 figures. So, and Trump has had, millions and billions his whole life. He's never, had to think about, oh man, can I afford to get another subscription to Netflix on top of my Apple TV subscription? Or can I afford to buy $10 eggs this week? Or, can I fill my tank up with gas? That's something he's never even had to think about. So I don't understand why people think that he could relate with us in any way. It just doesn't make any sense to me. You guys go ahead and if you're on with me now, go ahead and let me know. Uh-oh, my battery's dying. Gotta plug in the computer. The technical difficulties of streaming. So MAGA, if you're on with me right now, go ahead and comment and tell me how you think Donald Trump can relate with us regular poor folks. Like these guys talking millions and billions, they're always talking in billions of dollars. Can you imagine $1 billion? Do you know, I think I read somewhere you could spend, if you had $1 billion, you could spend $33,000 a day for like 100 years or something like that before you think about needing money. It's just insane. Trump reiterated these promises in the new interview, affirming that the tariff revenue would cover the tariff rebate checks, reduce the federal deficit, and be allocated toward defense. Tax policy experts at the Tax Foundation have pointed out through analysis that the tariff dividend will cost anywhere from $279.8 billion to $606.8 billion. Yeah, hundreds of billions. In 2025, U.S. Customs and Border Protection reported collecting $216.7 billion in total duties, taxes, and fees, which falls short of the lower end of the dividend cost. Ultimately, the Tax Foundation experts wrote that sending out $2,000 payments to Americans would increase, not decrease, the federal budget. Yeah, and according to the experts and statistics, each American is going to pay about $1,500 extra this year in tariff duties, which are just taxes. So, I mean, it depends on what you buy. If you buy a lot of stuff from overseas, you're going to pay a lot more. If you're a business that all the stuff, your widgets you sell on Amazon all come from overseas, you're going to pay a lot more, but actually probably pass most of it on to your customers who buy the widgets from you or whatever you're selling. So if each American is paying $1,500 more, if you did give each of us a $2,000 check, that would cover the tariffs. But like it says there, the tariffs have collected $216.7 or almost $217 billion, which, yeah, is a ton of money for anybody on an individual basis. But it's not enough to give, it's short 50 or 100 million to give each American $2,000. Each American that makes under $100,000 a year. So, I don't know. Okay. Trump voter who may have voted for their own death or destruction. I actually think this is very sad but highly frustrating. Okay, this is kind of long, but I voted for Trump because I believed him when he said he's working to lower costs and government waste to make life affordable. But I didn't think he meant cutting Medicaid and hurting people like me. My autistic daughter, really? You were on Medicaid and you didn't think? Okay. You obviously didn't read anything liberals or left-wingers were writing. My autistic daughter and I really rely on Medicaid to survive, and we're not alone. Nearly 2.5 million Arizonans are enrolled in Medicaid. Our story is just one of many. In 2010, I had a kidney transplant. After 11 years, I needed another transplant and have now been back on the transplant list for the past 2 years. Medicaid pays for my 3-hour dialysis appointments 3 times a week. Without dialysis, my lungs would fill up with water and I wouldn't be able to breathe. Medicaid also covers my transportation to and from dialysis. Medicaid's really a pretty good program. I mean, I know my brother was on it before he died, but and my brother, according to MAGA, he doesn't deserve it because he was 50 years old at the time and all his problems were from heavy drug use, but he had the same issues, his liver, his kidneys, and he ended up being hospitalized his last year of life into full, because he just needed this kind of treatment all the time. And he went into like a state-run hospital in New York and, died there. He looked like crap the last time I saw him. He was all yellow. He was on the liver transplant list. He never got the transplant probably because of his, drug abuse. And I know he was still like, and I hate to admit it, but he had me bringing him like cigarettes and stuff when he was in there. And I mean, I knew he wasn't going to live long, so I just tried to make him feel comfortable and happy. And, and he just, he was addicted to everything he ever did, basically: marijuana, cocaine, cigarettes, alcohol. Medicaid pays for my 3-hour dialysis appointments 3 times a week. Without dialysis, my lungs would fill up with water and I wouldn't be able to breathe. Medicaid also covers my transportation to and from dialysis, cardiologist appointments, and life-saving medication. Without Medicaid, I would somehow be expected to pay over hundreds a month for prescriptions and an unfathomable amount for dialysis. Last December, I was struggling to breathe due to fluid buildup from pneumonia. I felt a scary glimpse of what life could be like without health care, and it terrified me. Thankfully, that was not my reality, and I was able to get the care I needed through my Medicaid coverage. I cannot afford health care on my own. I used to work in childcare, but had to stop to take care of my daughter who has health challenges. Everyday expenses like water and electricity bills are too high. The hardest part is affording groceries. We don't even take vacations or visit family because plane tickets are expensive. We are already struggling to get by. Adding more health care costs is simply unrealistic and cruel. The House recently passed a bill with massive cuts to Medicaid. This would have a devastating impact on so many lives, including mine and my daughter's. And Representative Eli Crane, who is supposed to be voting in our best interest, instead voted to advance the cuts. Eli Crane didn't just vote for a bill, he voted to make sure my daughter's care could disappear. He voted to put my life at risk. That's not just cruel, it's cowardly. He doesn't have to live with the consequences of his vote. We do. Politicians like Eli Crane want to talk tough about budgets, but where's the toughness in voting to let people like me die? Now we need senators, blah, blah. Yeah, so this is what you get when you vote for Republicans and, neo-Dems and Democrats like, frankly, Chuck Schumer and Jeffries. They just want to spend money on sending money to Israel to kill Palestinians and, tax cuts for the wealthy. You need to get in the Bernie Sanders wing. Bernie Sanders, AOC, that Graham Plattner in Maine. If you're in Maine, vote for Graham Plattner. Do yourself a favor. Get Susan Collins out of there. She's a worthless piece of shit who's never done anything good for Maine. But yeah, the way Eli Crane and these right wingers look at it, the more they could cut from poor people, the more they could, give to their corporate donors in the way of tax cuts and, deregulation and all that stuff. So if you're for deregulation and tax cuts for billionaires, then vote Republican. If not, do a little research, learn on your own, stop watching Fox News, and, you'll vote better. Vote for a progressive. I know democratic socialism sounds scary, but it only helps the poor. Look at, they make it sound, so scary and terrible, democratic socialism. But look at places like Denmark and Norway and Sweden. Everybody has free health care. They don't need as many vaccines in Denmark because they have free health care and their children are well taken care of with their health care. So they go to the doctor a lot more because it's free. It's paid for through their taxes. And we pay high tax in the U.S., but we don't get anything free for it. We get billionaire tax cuts for our high taxes, basically. Guys, if you're just joining, go ahead and subscribe. Share, comment, please comment. I'm going to do another gift here just to start another goal, and after that I'm going to call it a day. Donald Trump is the emperor with no clothes. With no clothes on. Ex-MAGA voters publicly apologize for supporting him. Oh. Trump supporting Dane changes his tune after ICE arrests him. I guess he's Danish. Oh yeah, I saw these guys on YouTube. Or TikTok.
I'm Vic Myers. Welcome to the Resistance. Stick around. I got 4 seconds to the Renee Good video that no one else is picking up on. First, we need to have a little context. To the Project 2025 administration, Renee Good wasn't a human being. She was an inevitable pawn in their sick, twisted game of chess. Their opening gambit was to deploy the National Guard to Los Angeles. They were expecting to inspire riots in the streets. Instead, they got rulings from the courts. Then they deployed the National Guard to our nation's capital, hoping to inspire violence there.
If I saw this guy on the street, I would think he was
They
MAGA.
got the saddest birthday parade in the history of parades.
But that's probably what people say about me,
and a
too.
worldwide No Kings protest. Eventually, a judge said the Guard couldn't be in D.C. They ignored the judge. Only then did they get violence. Came from a 29-year-old Afghan man who had worked for years with a CIA-backed unit in Afghanistan. He was granted asylum in April of 25. He drove from Washington State to Washington, D.C. and shot 2 National Guard members. And almost a year later, this administration still refuses to explain how someone that they had already vetted, processed, and resettled became the first act of violence after they defied a court order. When deploying the National Guard around the country didn't result in anarchy, they started escalating their level of violence and terror with the Gestapo, shooting priests in the face with pepper ball rounds, rappelling from helicopters in the middle of the night so that they could zip-tie toddlers in their underwear and make them kneel in the rain. And all they got out of that was inflatable frogs and unicorns. So far, every attempt to coerce the American people into violence has been met with calm resolve. So they're stepping up their game. It is my opinion that the shooting of Renee Good and subsequent shootings by ICE of 2 people in Portland, they were all part of a plan. A plan to use acts dangerous to human life that violate criminal laws and intend to intimidate or coerce a civilian population. Under U.S. Code 18 U.S.C. 2331, this is the definition of terrorism. I'm going to show you 4 seconds of the Renee Good video before she was assassinated. Did you see what I saw? This is what Kristi Noem has to say.
Our officer followed his training.
Here's the video again at half speed. Did you see it?
Our officer followed his training.
This is at 1/10 speed. I clipped the beginning because it wasn't relevant.
And the guy in the window is telling her to get out of the car or leave, and the other guy is telling her to get out of the car. It's another thing. She got confusing information because they're poorly trained.
Our officer followed his training.
If you still didn't see it, I'll tell you in a sec. Today, ABC News had a retired high-ranking NYPD cop on. claims he reviewed the video frame by frame. Talked about how the officer is never supposed to be in front of the car, behind it, whatever. Then he waffles on the officer being at fault. Well, I also did a frame-by-frame analysis because at full speed, I saw something that he either didn't see or doesn't want to tell us about. Now, I'm not a cop, but my job involves carrying a firearm, and it includes recognizing when somebody is about to pull a weapon. Let me show you what I saw. I've zoomed in to a part that you need to see. Notice how the car is moving in reverse. At this point, right here, we can see Jonathan Ross start the movement necessary to draw his weapon. While the car is in reverse. 1 or 2 frames later, the car starts moving forward. But the point is, he was already in motion. Looks to me like he had already decided to pull the trigger.
Our officer followed his training.
Thanks for listening.
Yep, that sounds about right. They shoot first and ask questions later. That's our ICE, guys, our Department of whatever ICE stands for. But she should not have been shot. We shouldn't have armed, masked thugs like they're in Fallujah on the streets of Minnesota or New York or New Orleans or anywhere in the U.S. because we're a free country, a free people, and we are not Nazi Germany.
Look, I've been in this business for over 30 years, and I know a deliberate leak when I see one. What Putin just put out there about Trump, this wasn't supposed to see the light of day, ever. And the fact that it did tells you everything you need to know about who's really in control here. See, the Kremlin doesn't accidentally leak classified conversations. They don't oops their way into revealing what Trump's people are saying behind closed doors. When Putin decides to burn an asset or remind them who holds the cards, he does it with surgical precision. And that's exactly what just happened. So let's start with what actually leaked, because I guarantee most of you only got the sanitized version from your evening news. In October, Bloomberg got their hands on recordings, actual audio recordings of phone calls between Steve Witkoff, Trump's special envoy, and Yuri Ushakov, Putin's top foreign policy advisor. Now, if you don't know who Witkoff is, he's a real estate buddy of Trump's. No diplomatic experience, no foreign policy background, just another Mar-a-Lago millionaire who got handed the keys to one of the most sensitive negotiations in modern history. And here's where it gets beautiful, in the most horrifying way possible. In these calls, Witkoff isn't negotiating with the Russians. He's not playing hardball. He's not representing American interests. No, this guy is literally coaching Putin's people on how to manipulate Trump. I'm talking step-by-step instructions on what Putin should say, when he should call, how to frame things so Trump will eat it up. Tell him he's a man of peace, Witkoff says.
This is what happens when you put Trump's buddies in these powerful positions where people with decades of experience negotiating with the Russians were pushed to the side, fired, let go, whatever. And you put these, billionaires who made their money by luck usually or inherited it, but think they are the masters of the universe and that they deserve everything they got and they earned it and they're the smartest guys on earth. When Witkoff is known around New York as the dumbest guy in real estate, the dumbest billionaire in real estate.
Congratulate him on the Gaza deal first, then pivot to Ukraine. It's like watching someone write Putin's script for him. And Ushakov, you can practically hear him grinning through the phone. Mr. Putin will congratulate. He will say Mr. Trump is a real peace man. I've been in opposition research war rooms. I've crafted attack ads that would make your grandmother cry. But I've never, and I mean never, seen an American official actively helping a hostile foreign power play our own president like a fiddle. And the kicker?
Trump is definitely compromised by Russia. I mean, Putin has something on Trump. there's a reason why Trump always treats Putin and Russia with soft gloves, and he wants to break up NATO, which is the biggest gift to Putin ever. Because then he could just march into Poland and Latvia and all these other countries in Eastern Europe and take them over without NATO interference. But Trump, they definitely have the P tapes on Trump, or they have something on Trump.
Trump called this standard negotiation.
Something with Epstein,
Standard.
too.
Like, it's perfectly normal
That's
for
the
your
real reason he doesn't
envoy
want Epstein,
to be giving the
Epstein
Russians a
files to fully
playbook
come
on
out.
how to manipulate you. Now, here's what you need to understand. Putin had these recordings the whole time. He could have kept them secret. He could have used them as private leverage, but he didn't. He leaked them, and that should terrify you. Here's where my years running opposition research come into play, because you need to understand the psychology of what Putin just did. When you have compromising material on someone, you have two options. You can keep it quiet and use it as leverage. Look, I've been in this business for over...
And Putin has compromising material on Trump. You can guarantee that. Take that to the bank.
In 1933, a group of U.S. businessmen tried to overthrow the government and install a fascist dictator. And it almost worked. Right in the middle of the Great Depression, even, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt came in with the New Deal. Banking reform, labor protections, and taxes on the wealthy. And guess what happened? The richest men in America crashed the fuck out. We're talking DuPont, J.P. Morgan, executives tied to General Motors, Remington, Goodyear, Standard Oil, the tip of the spear. So what did they do? Well, they planned a coup, a real one. And they needed a popular military hero to help pull it off, right? Enter Major General Smedley Butler, the most decorated Marine in U.S. history at that time. This guy was beloved by veterans, a real soldier. And they thought if he led the coup, the public would trust it. Now, while families were skipping meals, losing their homes in 1933, the elite backers of this coup were living like nothing was wrong. In 1933, the richest families held 40% of all U.S. wealth. Today, the top 2% still holds about 42% of all national wealth. 4 out of every $10 in this country. Now, back in 1933, the wealthy were still hosting private galas, awarding themselves bonuses, while the average family works harder for less. So when FDR raised their taxes and asked them to pay a little, they didn't tighten their belts. They decided to overthrow the government. And here was the plan. They would bankroll a private army of 500,000 veterans at a cost of over $30 million. That's $700 million today. They'd march on Washington and force FDR to accept a new position called the Secretary of General Affairs, basically a fancy term for American dictator, modeled directly on how Mussolini and Hitler took power. They told Butler, don't worry about media coverage. The newspapers will support us, they said, because many of the biggest publishers at that time were tied to the same industries funding the coup.
So Trump would love to do this today, but here's the thing. I don't think our military, I don't know if there is a hero like Smeldy or whatever his name is now anyway. It's just a different era. We don't have those kind of heroes that, back then during World War I and World War II, there was very few newspapers and outlets, and these heroes, like Audie Murphy, he was one during World War II. I remember they made movies about him, but they would overblow these guys and, say they killed 50 men on their own and stuff like that. Today, there's too much independent media like this channel and other channels that would verify that or find the falsehoods and all that stuff. So we don't have the same kind of heroes, but I don't know if they would need, or if Trump would need exactly the same military hero, because Trump's so popular amongst his base, or 30% or 40% of the country himself. But I don't think, especially the military leadership, wouldn't go in for this. The rank and file, I'd say probably half of them are supporting Trump. But the problem is now that Trump is so bad right now on the economy and everything else, I don't think anybody's going to back him, after Venezuela and mostly the Epstein files, which he's hiding because he's a pedophile all over the Epstein files. I don't think anybody's going to back Trump in a coup, but, I could be wrong, so we have to be vigilant.
And they wanted to use the American Legion, the nation's largest veterans group, as their backbone. And this wasn't fringe. This wasn't 1930s 4chan shit. This was the American elite trying to burn down democracy to protect their profits. Here's the thing. Butler wasn't corrupt. He went along with it for a spell, a snippet, a stint. And then he went straight to Congress. He testified under oath. He dropped names. He laid out the whole plot. And Congress confirmed it. The McCormack-Dickenstein Committee, the group that was later the House Un-American Activities Committee, said, and I quote, "There is evidence that supports General Butler's testimony on the existence of this plot." Now, the coup was real. So naturally, in America, those perpetrators were prosecuted, right? I mean, a plot to overthrow our democracy. Gotta bring that swift hammer of justice down, right? Yeah, but in America, we don't prosecute the wealthy. We never have. None of the businessmen were ever prosecuted, not a single one. They were too wealthy, too politically connected, too important to the American economy. So the report was quietly filed away, downplayed, and erased from textbooks.
See, that's what has to change in America. After the 2008, I was out there, the 2008 downturn in the economy or recession, the financial crash, whatever you want to call it. It was caused by bankers behaving badly and doing illegal things. But not one, I think one banker, a lower level banker, got prosecuted for it when Jamie Dimon, all these guys should be in jail or should have been put in jail for letting this go on and, doing whatever they could, breaking the law to make money. But Obama, and this is why Obama, one of the reasons he's hated is because he bailed out the banks instead of bailing out the neighborhoods, he bailed out the banks instead of bailing out Main Street. And that was his biggest fault. But the thing is, these politicians, because of Citizens United and other laws, they get so much funding from these wealthy people and bankers, just like back then in 1933. They never pay for their crimes. That's what needs to change in America. Billionaires, the next president, the next regime that comes in, we need to vote for people that are going to hold billionaires accountable, hold Elon Musk accountable for fucking with the 224 election and playing with the computers and cheating and, whatever other criminal things he's up to. But we need to hold billionaires accountable, not just Elon Musk, Jamie Dimon, the bankers, the tech billionaires who are right now planning their own coup. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching today. I will have another live stream soon. I'm trying to do it every day. I just don't have the time. I'm a regular guy. But like, subscribe, share, and I will see you next time at the SpinCycle. And get a membership. And I'm going to get another way to support the channel soon. I'm not sure what. Buy me a coffee or what's that other one? I can't think of the name of it, but I'm going to get one of them as another way to support the channel besides paying YouTube, where they take 30% or more of any of the extra money a channel gets. Okay. Have a good evening, guys, and we will see you next time on the SpinCycle.